Good morning you guys, it's Karen and I thought I would do a video on the top 6 items that I feel like I couldn't live without, that have been the best purchases that we have made in terms of dog products. And this came about because hubby and I were just sitting talking about it over a drink at the weekend. We were saying, oh, that blah 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 has just been amazing, and oh, so is this, and we were saying, right, what are our top 5 products? And I said to him, oh, there's a video in that because that might be things that would be useful to other people, so I thought I would share them with you. So without further ado, this is my number 1 item, and it is just a bell, as you can see, with a little clip on the end. I bought this from Pets at Home, and we use this, or Watson uses this, to let us know when he wants to get out in the garden. Ring the bell. You want to go out? Good boy. I have done a video on how we trained him to use the bell, but honestly it's a bit of a long video, and it's simply me talking and explaining how I did it because we'd already trained him, and then people were asking me to show the training, but I'd already trained him. But I think I can do a better video. But basically you lift them up and put their paw on it and then treat them and then open the door, and then they sort of then get the connection basically. And there are a couple of videos out there on how to train them. But the reason we were saying it's been the best thing ever is because at the times where he's had an upset bottom, a troubled time, he's been able to ring the bell at times where we wouldn't normally have taken him out. And so it's just really lovely to know that he's got a way of letting us know where it wouldn't be a usual time he'd need out, that he needs to go out, and it's avoided accidents in the house. He has rung the bell in the 2 years we've had him. He has on 3 occasions rung the bell in the middle of the night, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we have got up and taken him out. Talk of the devil. And Kev and I weren't aware that dogs don't actually like to have accidents in their den. It really bothers them, because Watson did have a very bad accident, and it must have been around about the time we were taking him for treatment for colitis, or taking him to the vet because of him having such an upset bottom. And the only reason he didn't ring the bell is because he was very young at that stage, and we had the kitchen gate closed so he couldn't get to the bell, and from that night onwards we left the gate open, so he's always been able to let us know. So I would highly recommend, if you are getting a puppy or if you want to train your dog a way to let you know that he needs to go out, I would recommend getting a bell. And there's a better bell than that. I might well get one. I'm going to link it for you. There's a better bell on Amazon that you can hang on a door handle. You don't have, because that one, it's against the wall. I suppose we could have put a better fixing on, but it is making marks on the wall. So that's what we decided was our number 1 product. These are not in a particular order, these are just our top 6 couldn't live without products. And the second one I'm talking about is this. These two together, you do have to buy them separately. But this is a water bottle, and I don't know how much he drank of it yesterday when I used it, but you take off the lid, and the lid is a cup that they can drink from. So you just pour it in there, and then they drink from the top there, and then whatever they've not used you can put it back in, although usually it's too dirty, isn't it, from their muzzle and whatnot. Oops, I'm dripping water all over myself. So not only is that amazing, but you can buy with it this crossbody sort of neoprene holder. And so both Kev and I take these when we go out and just put it across our body, and these have been amazing. Before having these, we've got one each, Kev and I, we both had a little bowl, like a collapsible bowl. But if you're going out without a bag and you just want to put everything in your pockets, it didn't fit in a pocket, or we would go out and one of us would have forgotten to bring a bowl, or the bowl, we didn't have 2. And so it just, with this you've got everything you need in one place, and it's easy to carry. It's easy, you don't have to dig in your bag to get something or dig in your pockets. You just stop and take it out and give them some water. And I don't see enough people carrying water, especially when it's hot. You know, obviously we don't take him out when it's scorching hot, but it's still, to him, when it feels okay to us, it's still very hot, and he definitely needs the water, and he drinks a lot, and especially when he's on a play date or whatever. So it's really useful. And even if we don't use it, if he doesn't seem to want to drink any, we sometimes just splash it over him, especially if he's wearing a little, we've got an Equifleece t-shirt that we soak and put on him on hot days, and you can re-wet it with water from this as well. You can also rinse their feet in it and whatnot. The next item is this cool mat. This is by Scruffs, but you can get many ones like it. We had one like it before this one that was half the size, just when he was a puppy, but it wasn't as good. It was very flat and firm, and it was just sort of in two pieces. You can fold it in half, and like I said, it was fully open. It was about half the size of this, but obviously it will depend on the size of your dog. But with this, it's kind of squidgy, and we've had this probably a year and a half, something like that, and it's still cool. And Watson lies on this mat every day, like all the way through the winter, all the way through the summer. He lies on this mat, so it's obviously very, very comfortable for him. And this depends on your dog. You know, you'll know, do you have a dog that gets hot or do you have a dog that gets cold? Because you can actually buy heat pads for dogs and heated beds and things. Watson would hate that. I mean, he can't take any kind of heat at all. If you're sitting next to him, he feels like a burning hot water bottle, you know. So this for us has just been a godsend. And so you could use this if you've got a pet that you know gets hot. It's funny because that isn't one of those things that we bought thinking it would be a lifesaver. We just thought, oh, should we try one of these and see if it helps him cool down? And from the minute we got it, he almost lay there exclusively. And I would say he uses that every single day. And yet he's got many other beds that he sometimes uses. Like at night, he'll sometimes sleep on that, or he'll sleep in the window. Sometimes he'll sleep on his bed, but every single day he uses that cool mat. The majority of his sleeping time is done on that cool mat. So we're on to number 4, and it's this. This simple little harness has just been amazing, and it's been the difference between me having tennis elbow and being in a lot of pain with my tennis elbow, and Kev as well. We both have elbow problems, and Watson pulls like anything and always did pull, and we tried training methods, of course, but he was just a puller, and he was, not only was he giving us pain, he was choking himself with the collar, and it was just too much. It was worrying me. And there is a lot of damage can be done if you're wearing just a collar and they're pulling. You know, most dogs that pull will pull until they choke themselves and they're coughing, and it's just not good. It's damaging their throat. So you would think just get a normal harness, which we did, but a normal harness just didn't give us enough control. I didn't mind it, but Kev wasn't a big fan of it, and I know what he means. It was almost like, because it wasn't pulling on his neck, he could almost pull more. And so this was suggested by a friend who had used it for her lab that was pulling her over, and so I thought I would give it a go. And I know there are other ones. There are ones that go over the face. I think it's called a Holty, but to me they look like they may rub a little bit around the muzzle area. That would be my concern. I don't know, because I haven't experienced one, so you know, if you have one and it's working for you, I understand why. But the idea is the lead from the front. So you put this harness on like that. It's difficult at first to know how to get it on, and then you clip on the lead at the front, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. And even Kev said at first, oh, I'm not sure I can get used to this. But the wonderful thing about it is, it's not, I thought that he would pull on it and it would twist him round, which I wasn't that keen on the idea of pulling him round to face me every time. But I thought, well, if that's what happens, it will condition him into not pulling. That's not what tends to happen. They actually seem to instinctively know that if they pull, they obviously get the slightest little bit of tension. It shows you, you know how like Cesar Millan and other people say that your feelings are through the lead. It's certainly true, because I can't tell, but he obviously knows that if he pulls at all, that it is going to turn around, so he just doesn't pull. I mean, I literally couldn't believe it, and neither could Kev, and because of that we were like, okay, it's a winner, and that is what we have used ever since, and we'll never use anything else. We have to put a collar on to Watson when he goes to daycare, because they don't accept harnesses for some reason, and Kev says even with that little bit of a walk to the car and from the car, he goes immediately back to pulling and to, you know, irritating his throat, etc. So I would highly recommend this, so I will link that for you. And by the way, I have put this in the washing machine about 4 or 5 times since having it, because even now it's got a bit dirty, but I know it's not anything disgusting. But the times where it's had a bit of a roll in poop or whatever, then I put it in the washing machine and it's absolutely fine. This is invaluable to us. This is the Country Hunter. This one is duck. We also feed him venison, but these are nuggets of raw food. And it's so weird, because people were very, I will use the word preachy to me about raw food in the whole year that Watson had colitis. And he had very bad colitis, and it was really upsetting, and the vets just kept saying, you need to find a food that works for him. And I remember we bought some raw food for they do a puppy version as well in lots of different flavors. I think chicken is the one we got. We didn't know he was sensitive to chicken at the time, and he wasn't that keen on it. We weren't really that keen on having raw food, and so we just passed over the idea. But people continued to be very, very insistent that raw food was just the most amazing thing ever, and that it transforms their coat, their energy, their life. Really, it really is life-changing, is the way everybody would talk about it. But we just said, oh, you know, we got some and he didn't really like it, and we don't really like the idea of having raw food, you know, on the floor, in their bowl, etc. There was a program on it recently that tried to sort of discredit it, but then the program itself was slated for the information being just completely wrong. You know, they were talking about how they'd taken a raw food bowl and tested it for bacteria. But the thing is, any bowl of food will, you know, after a dog has licked it, will have bacteria in it. Their tongues will always have bacteria in it, etc., etc. And raw food is more towards the natural way that they should eat, is the thinking anyway. Like I said, we were just didn't really feel that we wanted raw food. It freaked me out, the thought of raw food. A lot of it is you buy it and have to chop it up, and we did try this one called Nutriment, I think, and it came in a tub, and it really freaked me out. I didn't like it at all. When I discovered these chunks, I was like, I'm happy to give those a go, because they're just little frozen chunks of complete food. So it's got vegetables, it's got raw meat, it's got everything the dog needs in here. And so we tried him with them. Overnight, his colitis disappeared and has never come back, but it's never come back as a consistent thing. He gets a flare up of it when he has, for example, when he had medication, when he had his operation recently, he got a flare up of his colitis. If he eats a crab on the beach, if we don't get to him in time, then he gets a flare up of his colitis. There's a few things that flare it up, but for the most part, this just healed him overnight. He loves it. He's never gone off it, which he was a very, very fussy eater. I think most people say he's got a beautiful, healthy, glossy coat, which to be fair, he did have anyway. But I know I'm now sounding preachy, but I feel like people worry about the raw aspect, and we get duck and venison, which I don't know whether this will make sense to you or not, but I'm getting something that humans could eat raw. So this is no more dangerous than any cooked meat, any normal hygiene procedures you would have to go through. Different with raw chicken, because we can get sick from raw chicken, but we can't get sick from raw duck or from raw venison. So that's something to think about if you want to get this food, because it comes in duck, venison, I think there's a fish one as well. But the reason I'm sounding preachy is if you've got a puppy or a dog with any kind of colitis or any kind of issues, even skin issues, it would be worth trying them on raw food if you can. And these raw food super chunks cover everything they need nutrient wise, so I would highly recommend them. Final item on my list of can't live without is this dog robe. This is by dogrobes.co.uk, but I have made a couple for myself, and I had one made for me as a gift, and I bought another one of these. I had so many because when I was grooming, they were useful for my clients then, so I had them in all different sizes, and they are just invaluable. When I had dogs that didn't like to be blow dried, and Watson is one of those, then when I give him a wash, which I have to do once a week with his medicated shampoo or with his antifungal shampoo, I'm not going to blow dry him every week. One, because it takes so long, and two, because he doesn't like it. And so I just stick this on him, and you take this off in, I don't know, say an hour, and he's bone dry. The rest of him is still wet. You know, his ears always remain wet, and his paws are a little bit wet, and you know, the rest takes a lot longer to dry. But because, like I said, he's not a dog that gets cold, so I don't need to worry about that. And I always time it that I wash him after a walk, so he then sleeps for most of the time after that. But like I said, when I was grooming, I also used it, and I would highly recommend getting one of these. You can get bags, dog bags, but then the dog can't move, they can't walk or anything. But at least that gets more than just their underside and their body. This is obviously only going to get their body and the underside, but it's really useful. Even when he goes out with Kev in the morning, if just his underbelly is wet, we stick one of these on him, and then he's not getting, you know, any mud anywhere when he's lying down in the window, etc. Okay, so that's the 6 things I couldn't live without, but I've got 2 honourable mentions, is that what you call them? Yeah, that I wouldn't like to live without, that if I couldn't buy them anymore, I wouldn't know what else to use. The first one is this, and it's just a shampoo. This is the Groom Professional Baby Fresh shampoo. And obviously, again, with grooming, I tried a lot of different shampoos and conditioners, etc. And I pH tested them all. And this one is, although it has got a scent in it, has got perfume in it, it's very good for sensitive skin. It's one of the ones that it was even better than an oatmeal one I had tried, which is kind of well known for being anti-itch. But it's also one that foams up a lot, but rinses out easy, because some of them that foam up a lot take a long time to rinse from long-haired dogs, but this one doesn't. Rinses away lovely, and it leaves the most beautiful scent on the dog for days, so I love that. And the other thing that is just a lifesaver is this, and this is a human thing, is the Bumble & Bumble Defrizz Serum. The reason I bought this human one is because I couldn't find anything that in the way of serums for a dog, but if I found anything that I could use, like a leave-in conditioner on Watson's coat, it would have perfume in it, and I'm using perfume already in the shampoo, but I'm rinsing that away. I didn't want to leave perfume on him. I do use a conditioner as well, but I just, the more detangling you can do to a dog's coat to avoid him getting mats, the better, because they're painful for them, they're hard to remove, and it sometimes means you have to shave them, etc. And so I use this on Watson's coat, and it has no perfume in it. And I always let him smell it, actually. And I always wonder, does it have a scent to him? But it doesn't. It has no scent at all to me. But it's also one that doesn't leave the coat greasy, because before that I used coconut oil, which is wonderful, but you'd see where he'd be lying, there'd be a greasy patch, and it didn't ever sink right into his coat. It would just, even if I used just a tiny bit, his coat would be greasy. If I put that in, within half an hour, it's sunk into his coat, and his coat is beautifully soft and just so much easier to brush through. So I wouldn't want to live without that serum. That's everything. I hope that you enjoyed that, and that maybe you saw something there that might be a solution to help your dog with something, being too hot, pulling on the lead, letting you know when he needs to go out. That really has been a godsend, that bell, because I know that a lot of dogs bark, don't they, to let you know, or they go towards the door. Watson, actually, before we got the bell, he would look over his shoulder as he was leaving the room. But the reason we needed to get the bell was because I was working in my office here, and I wouldn't have been able to see him going towards the door, you know, so invaluable. But this channel is all about trying to help improve the lives of dogs, albeit indirectly, but I hope that by some of the things I share that I've been able to do to make Watson's life easier, and ours, will hopefully be spread out there and help some other dogs. So thank you so much for watching. Like I said, I'll list everything in the description below.